Hi, this is Dr. MJ coming to you from beautiful Boston, Massachusetts. This is the Women in Dentistry podcast, where we feature women in dentistry making waves and leading the industry through the next decade. I am your host, Dr. Mary Jane Hanlon, a former dental assistant, dental hygienist, and now dentist. I'm very pleased to introduce you today to Ms. Carrie Weber. Carrie is the owner of the Jameson Group, a dental management coaching and marketing firm that works with dental practices nationwide to help dentists and their teams become more productive, more profitable, and ultimately more fulfilled in their practicing lives. Carrie is a contributing author to several publications and blogs on the topics of dental management, leadership, marketing, customer service, and business development, as well as a popular speaker at dental meetings nationwide. She's a member of the Speaking Consulting Network, Dental Entrepreneur Woman, and has been named a leader in CE by Dentistry Today for the past 6 years. It is now my pleasure to bring you to my interview with Ms. Carrie Weber. Carrie, I am so excited to have you on the show today. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and join me and to share your journey in dentistry with our audience. So without any further ado, can you just jump right in? Let us know how you got into dentistry and what you're doing today.
Of course. Thank you, MJ. And I'm so excited. The whole purpose of this platform you've created is really near and dear to my heart. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you and take this wherever it may lead us in the next minutes. But yes, so dentistry, probably very similar to your story. Dentistry is really a part of my life. My father is a retired dentist and practiced for 30 years in a small town in Oklahoma. I live in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and grew up in a small town. And my dad's desire was, after dental school, he went to Creighton University in Omaha, Nebraska, and wanted to come home back to where he grew up and take care of the people from the community he grew up in. And so that's exactly what he did. But the beautiful thing about his story, not that this is about him, but, my mother played a huge role in the success of his career. About 10 years into his practice, he was really financially struggling and struggling with the direction of the practice and really fulfilling what his ideal vision was. It didn't exist. His purpose and his vision was not present in the practice that he owned at the time, that he bought into. And so my mother stepped in as his office manager and helped turn the practice around. And in a time that was very economically challenging in Oklahoma, his dental peers were asking, how are you doing this? How are you doing this? How are you doing this? And he would say, talk to Kathy, talk to Kathy, talk to Kathy. And so very organically, my mother started going into dental practices, teaching them what was working in my dad's practice. And then she started getting asked to speak and so on and so forth. And that's how the Jameson Group was born. And so that was in the late 80s. And Jameson was incorporated in 1990. So the company will be celebrating its 34th birthday this year.
Wow.
And
okay, so hold the phone. I had no idea Kathy Jameson was your mom.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that is amazing. I mean, I've been following her for years. She had an amazing career. I had no idea she was your mom. Oh
yeah,
my
so
gosh,
John and Kathy
awesome.
Jameson are my parents. And yes, so that is where I lived. I grew up in my dad's practice. I grew up going to consults at other dental practices with my mother. I still have handwritten notes from lectures that I attended of some of the great practice management speakers that were in their heyday when my mom was just getting started attending conferences. It's a very strange way to grow up, but I found myself very attracted to the whole culture they were creating in our company and the the things they were doing for dentists and dental practices and teams, the confidence they were putting into people, the skills they were building up in people. And so I used to swear that I was never going to go into dentistry because, growing up with a dentist and a dental practice management consultant, you can imagine what the conversations were like at our dinner table
yeah.
every single night. And so the running joke of a lot of our senior consultants and advisors from Jameson, when my husband and I stepped in to purchase the business, was, oh, look who was never gonna go into dentistry.
Never say never, right?
Tables have turned. And I said, okay, yes, very funny. I always say I was brainwashed, and so here I am. But my husband and I, after we got married, we were married in 2000 and immediately started working in the company. And my husband was getting his master's in health administration at the time. And we both were still like, this is just temporary. This is not our long term. But when my parents offered him a position as the director of operations for the company, after having some interviews with hospitals and realizing the difference between what the executives in these hospitals considered leadership and what we considered leadership and what we taught to dental practices, it felt obvious very quickly that this was an offer that he couldn't turn down. And so that was 24 years ago. And we bought the company 12 years ago, which is crazy to me, and have continued to lead the company forward at that point. In the midst of all of that, we partnered with a dental practice in Oklahoma City. After my dad had retired in the early 2000s, I'm not a dentist. And so my husband is not a dentist. And what we found that was very powerful in what we do in helping dentists and teams create a path towards their ideal vision for their businesses was to be able to live what they were experiencing. And we were missing that pretty desperately. Personally, I don't think it was a necessity, but it was important to us. I don't know if that makes any sense, but so we found a doctor here in Oklahoma City that purchased a practice with us, and her name is Dr. Shannon Maddox, and she has been our partner for 12 years. So we bought this practice when we bought Jameson, and also had 2 young kids. So we were out of our ever-living minds. But it all seemed like a good idea at the time.
Of course it does. And you never know what the domino effect of it is going to be, but you'll get there.
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome.
So we are very blessed that Dr. Maddox agreed to take this journey with us to be what we call our beta practice, being able to say that we are continuing to practice what we preach and that we are continuing to live the systems and methods and skills that we teach other practices in a proven way, has really helped us be guides to other dentists and teams through the journey. I mean, we've gone through 3 maternity leaves with our doctor, 3 doctor maternity leaves, because she has had 3 children in the midst of this decade. An entire team transition after purchasing an existing practice. None of the team that was originally part of that practice is there anymore. A complete overhaul of updating the practice, cleaning it up, getting the technology up to speed. We went through, just like everybody else, a pandemic. We also went through eliminating insurance plans with this practice, taking it from being inundated with plans to now only being in relationship with one. And with all of those pieces, I feel like I can, with confidence, sit across from a doctor and say, I understand. I understand.
You live it every day, right?
That's right. We've lived it. We've struggled through it, but we have pushed through for change, and we pushed through to create a new vision for that practice. And that's what we do with a lot of doctors to this day. We now have a marketing division of our company. So we not only provide business and hygiene coaching to dental practices, we also provide leadership and operations coaching for doctors and practice leaders, as well as full service marketing for those that are looking to build their new patient flow in that way. And we just carry on. And I have felt such an honor to continue my family's legacy, what my parents built, decades ago. And I have their full support and belief. And Jess, my husband, does as well, and our team. And now we get to be not only what I call stewards of the legacy that they built, but the map makers and explorers for the future of our company as the dental industry continues to evolve.
Right.
And I feel a deep responsibility for that, but I also feel very fortunate to have that opportunity to help so many practices across the country.
Well, obviously, Jameson Consulting is known across the country. Everybody knows of Kathy Jameson, number one. Number two, I cannot believe that how fortunate your parents are to have a child that wanted to carry on that legacy. Because I think that's one of the dentist's biggest disappointment is if we don't have, we work so hard, 30 years, 35 years, however long it might be. We work so hard building something and making it extremely successful to sell it to somebody else who won't treat it the way that we treated it, which is something that happened to me. And it was devastating to me. I still, 15 years later, after selling my practice, I still have patients call me from Massachusetts and say, you got to tell me somebody to go to because I can't stay in this practice anymore. So, it's a heartache for us. So, good for your parents, good for you too, that you're able to carry on this legacy because, it's a great company.
Well, thank you. I believe that. I'm obviously biased. I believe that. And when we made the decision to not simply stay in employment with the company, but to take the risk and invest and purchase the business and take it on ourselves to move it forward into the next generation. It was more for not the promise we saw of what it would give us, but it was more a sense of responsibility for the people that were a part of it. I don't know if that makes any sense, but we really saw it as, well, if we don't take it on, what happens to it? Right. And just knowing how much blood, sweat, and tears my parents put into the company. And then also at that point, we had the deepest of relationships with our team and our teammates and really meaningful relationships with many of our clients. And so it just felt like the carrying forward of these relationships and a hope, a blind optimism, I guess, that maybe, just maybe, if we can carry it on ourselves, we can keep building these kinds of relationships and helping doctors, like you, MJ, that want to create these meaningful places, these sparks of, have a business that you can benefit deeply from financially, but also personally, and create something lasting and that you can look back on your career with a deep sense of pride for what you did and contributed.
Absolutely, positively. Now, just a quick question, because I do interview a lot of practice management consultants, and I want you to have the opportunity to speak about what makes you different and what it is that Jameson Consulting brings to the table that maybe some of the other ones don't. Well,
you sound like so many doctors that ask me that same question. And I probably don't do myself any favors because I say, if a consulting company has stuck around for a while, there's typically a reason. So, there's success in the bones of that business. And, if any small business makes it past a decade, there's something that they're doing right. I really believe that. If you are any type of small business and you survive a decade, you're doing something right. I have to believe that. And so there's a lot of great companies out there. There's a lot of great foundational, most consulting firms, for those that aren't familiar with consulting, are brought into practices to help the doctors and the team create systems, create methods to how they're running their business, to create process of how they're supporting the patients, to help them become more efficient or perhaps more profitable. less stressful. And
Mhm.
there's a lot of great companies that do that in their own way. And I always tell doctors, if that's something that people are interested in, consulting is of interest to you, you have to get clear on your own personal philosophy of how you want to run your business and take care of your patients, and then find companies that support your philosophy. And for us, we're team centered. We teach a lot of, we do team coaching, but we also do a lot of one-on-one with the doctors, because I have an empathy for the owner.
Mhm.
I do, because I know what it means to struggle, and I know what it means to feel very isolated. And I know what that feeling of responsibility on a business owner's shoulders are. And so I have a deep desire to help owners thrive and find their way to whatever makes them thrive, and release them from the shoulding of what they think they should be, or what they think how they think their practice should run. Well, you do it this way, so I guess I have to do it that way, or they seem to be successful, so I'll just do what they're doing. But that doesn't bring fulfillment.
Mm-mm.
That just brings probably more misery if it's not connected to your philosophy and purpose. And so I have a deep passion for that, but our team is very rooted in connecting to the team with the ultimate purpose of helping dentists and teams be healthy and happy in their careers, whatever that means for them, but really from a patient-focused, patient-centered type of teaching. Because I believe if you put the effort into streamlining, having efficient and effective systems that give structure to set your team members up to be successful, they can help you. If you build leadership within your team to help lead with you, you can move more quickly. And if you are focused on integrity and serving your patients and partnering with your patients and creating verbal skills and systems and skills and confidence that allow you to do that, you will grow. Mm-hmm. I believe that. Sometimes I think dentists and teams shoot themselves in the foot for a lot of reasons. We jump on what seems like the quick fix, whether it's new patient flow, productivity, or whatever, and that ends up causing more harm than good, because we're not starting at the foundation of who are you, what's most important to you, what are the non-negotiables that you will not sacrifice for this practice or the patients, and what are you going to build here? And when you are really clear on those things, you attract people to your team that believe in those things too. And typically practices are either lacking of vision, lacking of clarity of vision, lacking of systems to support the vision. And all of that can create stress and distress, which is what we find a lot of doctors in.
A couple of points that I want to make. You're spot on. First is, if you don't have a vision of where you want to go, your team's not going to be able to follow you, because they're all over the place. It's chaotic because you don't have a vision of where you want to go. So I think that point is perfect, that you do have to have an idea of what you want to do, what you want to accomplish.
Yes.
And knowing what I went through in my private practice, it wasn't until I was brave enough to get rid of underperformers.
Yes.
And set the expectation that you're going to perform at my level. If you can't, that's okay. You just don't belong with me. And when I started to set that as a framework for interviews, I found the most amazing team that was with me for the last 10 years of my practice. And we accomplished a lot in that 10 years. And I couldn't have done it without them.
I love that. And that's a perfect example of it. Before we started this interview, MJ, you told me that, a lot of the motivation for this podcast that you've created is to help women in dentistry build their confidence. Mm-hmm. And there is such an obvious gap in confidence, not just in the women in dentistry, in our beloved dentists in general, especially in the scenarios they find themselves in, whether you're doing a startup from scratch, but especially when I see these doctors purchasing existing practices and going through transition. Being a person that did a transition of business ownership of an established business, twice. I understand this, and I know how difficult that can be if you have no confidence in where you're going.
Yeah.
And I had a teammate teach me a question several years ago that I continue to press forward on people all the time is you have to be able to answer the question, what does right look like for you? And then be able to clearly communicate and set expectations of what that is.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of doctors don't do that. They step right in and they feel like, well, this is how it's always been, so I should just keep doing it this way. And they're just setting themselves up for absolute misery.
Absolutely, because it's not genuine. It's not theirs.
Right.
It's somebody else's. It's got to fit you. Absolutely.
That's right. And also to your point, that once you finally started making decisions that supported your vision, no matter how difficult they are, the tides turned for you.
Yep.
And, for both of us, from direct experience of that, the moment you step into confidence that is supported by vision, it actually makes it less difficult.
It does.
Because when you know what you want the heart of your organization to be, when someone directly challenges that vision, you're like, no, no, we have worked too hard. We have come too far. We are too clear on where we're going to sabotage this now.
That's right. That's right.
And I want desperately for the dentists that may be watching or listening to this to hear me when I say start with your own clarity of what right looks like, and then communicate that to your team members. Mm-hmm. And let the people that agree and believe in it stay on your bus. And anyone that doesn't agree with it, let them go. Let them go be who they are somewhere else. Because you cannot proceed when you're having to drag people along with you.
Yeah.
And so obviously I'm getting a little wound up.
That's okay. We're very passionate about this topic. And reluctant employees is not what you want. Mm-hmm. You don't want a reluctant person in your space because it ruins everybody else's vibration, right? And it ruins the effort for everybody else.
That's
Second point I want to make is that one of the things that I found is if everybody's going in the same direction, it was so much easier.
Yes.
And of those people that were on my team, I had several come to me and say, you know what, MJ, I have loved working here, but it's time for me to go to get to the next level for my career.
Yes.
Good for you, because that's exactly what I want. I was never devastated when somebody wanted to go on to better themselves, because that's the whole point.
Yes.
I mean, I went from dental assistant to dental hygienist to dentist in my career. So I get it. I know that you want more. And that would be the whole point, is to be more than what you were before.
Yes. It's so admirable that you lived by that in the practice, because so many are afraid of that. Mm-mm. There's a fear of losing team from so many different angles, because to your point of letting team members go that need to be let go because they aren't reflecting the standards of excellence that you set forth for your practice, and you have to hold them accountable to that, or let them go if they choose not to live up to those standards. I think we've been in such a pickle. We've been in such, I can't think of another thing to say, but we've been in such a pickle the last couple of years because of the hiring issues that our industry, so many industries have faced coming out of the pandemic. The supply and demand being flipped, and the demand is so high for team right now that we just can't fulfill it. So a lot of people either hire desperately because, finally, there's a warm body to fill this position, even when they know in their heart of hearts it's not a good fit. Or we hold on to a team member that has no business being a part of our team because who's going to do that work if they're not there? Or what if I lose team members because they've been around so long? Or what if I lose patients? And there's so many what ifs and so much fear in either keeping a position open until the right person for that position comes, or the fear of eliminating a person from that position because of all of that, all the what ifs that come with that. And I think that is causing even more problems.
So let me ask you this question. Do you find in your meeting with teams and meeting with docs that part of the problem is the way the doc treats this team?
It can be.
And that's why they can't get the right people on their bus.
They have not done the work to build a culture worthy of staying in.
Right.
So often. And that doesn't necessarily have to mean that you're a tyrant. You can be.
I was from the days when they used to throw things at us.
Well, they still
that's
there's still some out there.
Gone.
I don't know. There's still tempers. And, so people that can't keep their anger in check, their tempers in check, but also people that are so afraid of conflict, or to your point, MJ, so lacking in confidence, they're getting run over. Yeah. And or the practice is just rotting on the vine because who's leading? Yeah. No one's leading. And I've been in practices recently where the question has to be, who's leading this vision? When the day starts to fall apart and nobody wants to own rolling up the sleeves and getting everybody rallied up to get things going again, this is a dying practice. Yeah. And it's because the doctor has his or her head in the sand. And so it's painful to see across the board, but there's a lot of times where there has been no effort to build a culture. My husband heard somewhere and shares this from time to time. So I'm giving him credit, but it's not his to get credit for. I just don't know who said it. So anybody that knows, let me know. But it says, it was, you can't really motivate anyone. Mm-mm. You can only create an environment that allows them to motivate themselves. Right. And that's what culture in dental practices is all about. And I think there's some that are like, oh boy, here we go, talking about culture and how this, but here's the thing is, the younger the generations get, the more meaning in the work is important to them. Exactly. And we can't expect to have team members stay forever, to your point, but we can create an environment for them to grow, develop, and thrive while they're here. Exactly. And to your point, if they move on because they're going to go to the next step of their career, you can say you played a part in that person's growth, launching pad of where they're going to go next. And you think they're not going to remember you as a part of their story and the meaning that you brought to their career? And, I think we all should be a little bit more aware of the meaning we're making in our work and be grateful for those opportunities. But until we start putting an emphasis on, you don't have to be the end all be all leader. It's not like you have to be a monarch of your practice, but we have to create an environment that sets people up to be successful, taps into their own desires to take initiative and lead with you. As my mom says, a great dental practice is a group of leaders working cohesively toward a common set of goals. Mm-hmm. That, to me, describes the ideal culture that everybody wishes and wants for. But anybody that's wishing for that isn't doing the work. You have to take action. You have to take action. You have to take action and responsibility of your part in creating that type of reality for yourself. Absolutely. Oh my gosh, great conversation. So I'm so thankful I asked that question, because that was a lot of really good content for people to think about, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're struggling in a practice, I know I did. And, here I am, 40 years old.
And I just started a practice from scratch. I know nothing about finance. I mean, I really don't. Math was not my forte, and I did eventually get my MBA. And so I know now a lot more than I did then, and I've gone through buying practices and stuff also. So I understand a lot more than I did when I was younger. But I have to say that I would never have been able to pay off my student loans and my practice if I had not listened to somebody help me set it up right from the beginning. Because
Yes.
you have to have those systems in place. You have to have the accountability in place. You have to have the marketing in place. There's so many things on top of just being in the chair. You know, if you want to own your own practice, there's a lot that goes into it, and you need to have somebody, a partner, a practice manager who can take and shoulder some of those responsibilities for you.
Yes.
And you have to pay them well. You know,
Yes.
It sucks, but you have to pay them well, because you can't get there without your team.
That's
I
right.
could never have been successful without my team. Never, not in a million
No.
years. You can't do it by yourself. And I think too many dentists think that, now I'm a dentist. Now it's my shop. I can do whatever I want. You have to listen to me, and you have to do no, nobody's gonna, especially this generation that is growing up now and in the teen years, later teen years, early 20s.
Yes.
Not putting up with the bullshit. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. They're not. They're not. And I think it's
and good for them.
Good, yeah.
Right? Good for them.
Here's something I say all the time is when us older generations start complaining about the younger generations, I was like, a kernel of that is envy.
Yeah.
Because they're figuring out the things that the jagged pill we swallowed, and we're like, that they can't demand that. They can't expect that. And I'm like, is that because it's not possible? Or are we just jealous that we didn't demand it 20, 30, 40 years ago? Now there's a balance. Obviously, you gotta work, you gotta do the job, but can we create an environment where they thrive in that?
Yeah.
And, I can pinpoint doctors. I'm like, oh, you're going to do well, or you already are, because they have a mindset of continuous learning.
Yeah.
And continuous development. Like you said, MJ, and you identified, I had somebody that you probably had somebody teach you the things about the finances of your practice that you didn't understand. You probably reached out, or you took a class, or you got some help and you learned it.
Yep.
And what I think some fall back into is, well, I'm a dentist, I'm a doctor, and I'm rubbing elbows with all these other doctors that feel like they have it all figured out. And in my mind, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And there's no safe space to say, I don't know, or at least we don't think so. And so our head trash starts telling us, you should know this already. You should know this already. And what I would believe is lean into the things that head trash is telling you and seek out help, or go learn something about it, study it, or push through it.
And still being so stubborn that you think you know everything. I mean, we don't go to dental school. We don't get the basic finances in dental school. I mean, maybe some dental schools have, but there's not enough room in the curriculum. So you don't know everything. And that's why they call it the practice of dentistry. You're practicing every day. And
that's right.
I call it constant and never ending improvement.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, it's got to be always going on, always.
That's right.
If you're not reading and growing every single day, you are dying, right? I mean, that's our whole purpose, is to grow. I mean, I think that's why
the world is like putting inertia against us, trying to slow us down. And so we have to be putting forth our effort to continuously improve.
That's correct.
And you can only benefit from study, from mentorship, from resources, from training, and the same for your team. If we want our team to grow, develop, and be open to training and change and so on, we have to reflect that in ourselves.
Exactly.
And so that I love that, because that's what I believe. When I think about the top tier practices, they've always believed in developing not only themselves, but their team, giving their team members opportunities to grow and develop, and rewarding them for work well done, and understanding that to be the very best that they can be, they have to create that environment that allows everybody else to be the best that they can be as well. And, to your point of having other members of the team to carry the responsibilities with you, you're limited by your own capacity. Mm-hmm. So if any doctors listening are, trying to control every aspect or find themselves even without wanting to be the one that has to be doing everything, and you feel like you've hit a plateau, you most certainly have hit a plateau.
Yep.
Because
if help, right, you better acknowledge it.
That's right. It's time to start delegating some of this to somebody else to free you up to do the things that only you can do.
That's correct.
And allow other people to do things as well, because you will only grow it to a level that your capacity will allow you to. You just physically cannot lead a practice to a certain level of success by yourself.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I think we could talk about this like for another 2 hours or 3 hours.
I know.
Such good stuff. But we do have to change into a more personal stuff, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So tell me one thing that people would be surprised to know about you.
I'm a musician.
Ooh.
So maybe that's fun. In the midst of my career in my 20s, I also side hustled in bands. So I play guitar and sing, and I was in bands playing gigs for 20 years.
Wow, that's awesome. What kind of music?
You name it. A lot of original rock and pop music. But the fun stuff also, a lot of fun music just to entertain people and have a great time. In fact, I've actually played for some events in the dental space. The few that know ask me to perform. And
my gosh, that's so cool. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you know Dr. Gigi Garcia Rogers. She's from Massachusetts.
No.
Well, so it's very similar. She is in a rock band, and it always shocked me when I realized, and she's amazing.
Dr. Gigi, amazing. We need to meet.
Yeah. So at some point when we go to a meeting, I definitely will introduce you, because she's pretty phenomenal too.
I love that. I think it's a part of, I work a lot with trying to help doctors see the tie between their purpose and their vision. And my husband, Jess, always says, if you weren't going to be a dentist, what would you be? That's a question we ask a lot of doctors, and say, whatever it was that attracts you to that career path is the exact same reason you were attracted to dentistry.
Yeah.
Your purpose never changes. The vision can change. Your vision over 10 years probably changed from when you started with your practice to 10 years later. Your vision of that practice had changed, but your purpose, the drive for you, doesn't change. And so the things about music and performing, for me, there are some core pieces of that are the reason why I love what I do in Jameson and in dentistry, even though feel like they're two drastically different realms. There are similarities to what brought me joy and fulfillment in both that are tied together.
Very cool. Now, you have to do a lot of public speaking, both as a consultant, and you have to be up in front of people as a singer, right?
Yes.
So to me, that portrays a significant amount of confidence. Have you always been confident? And if not, what do you think contributed to building your confidence over the years? Was there someone or something that happened that contributed to it?
I think there are several things. I need to be real clear that I had to do a lot of work on that. I had to do a lot of work on that. When your mother's Kathy Jameson, there's a desire to earn your own stripes, while at the same time exceed the expectations of those that are probably in the space that know, right?
Right.
And like I said at the beginning, I didn't know when I was young that dentistry was going to be my path. I actually really had zero plans for that. And so when I stepped into and started getting asked to lecture, starting doing that for the company, I felt very lacking. And head trash, like I said, the confidence. Who are you to do this? You don't know what you're talking about. And so I leaned into study. I leaned into actually working with clients. I leaned into, I am very open and authentically vulnerable with my team. When I don't know things, even though I am their boss, they are my mentors. Yeah. And so I feel no hesitancy to ask my team for feedback or to help me if there's a piece of the puzzle that I'm not perfectly clear on, to help me build my confidence and understanding. And so I was surrounded by amazing people, not only my parents, obviously, and my husband, but my teammates at Jameson were so supportive, and they believed in me when I didn't believe in me. Mm-hmm. And they carried my confidence when I couldn't carry it myself. And then there are amazing people in the industry that believed in me, other speakers, clients, business connections, people that gave me opportunities because they believed in me. And so when you surround yourself, again, with the right people that connect with your values, your philosophy, your vision, your purpose at that level, you do kind of, you're actually climbing that ladder together. And it's such a more meaningful journey that way than to do it alone. So I feel very grateful to that. And then, in the confidence piece of presenting, yes, my music experience and stage experience has done me nothing but good. Yeah, exactly. Confidence to be in front of a group was never an issue for me. I did musical theater before I was in bands. And my grandmother actually had me doing speech competitions when I was a child. And so I always say one of the lessons in leadership that my grandmother taught me is never underestimate the value of good public speaking skills.
Oh, so true.
So I
wish more parents thought about that.
Yeah. So I give her tremendous credit too, that I knew the skills of public speaking. Mm-hmm. So that piece wasn't it for me. Somewhere along the line, I realized I knew this. I knew this. I knew this content. I knew this world. I knew this instruction. No, I was not afraid of any question that came from an audience. And I wasn't afraid to let them ask questions. And I wanted people to ask me questions because I wanted them to get something out of our time together. Mm-hmm. And that was another switch flip for me. And I think this could be really helpful for dentists that need confidence too. Before any presentation, before any time with a client in a consult, any lecture, the conversation I had with myself was, what can I give to them that would be valuable? So it had nothing to do with me and everything about serving the person that was on the other side.
Oh my gosh, I love that you just said that, because if you ever go into anything with that thought, what can I give instead of what's in it for me, you're going to get it back tenfold. And people
and there's no fear.
Realize it. Yes. And there's no fear. Mm-hmm.
There's no fear of rejection. There's no fear of what they think of you. There's no fear of, do you know how many times I've walked out in places of like, I think I'm going to go down in a blaze of glory, but I am going to blaze.
If I'm going down,
I am going to burn.
That's awesome.
So it really became a pivot in mindset of servant leadership.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I genuinely have come to the conclusion that there's no point in me doing this if I can't help people. Yeah. And somebody in that audience needs either inspiration or they need instruction. And something that I also felt a real need for was to fill a lecture with meat. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Like, no, there's many lectures that I've gone to that give you nothing. And it's all fluff. I definitely like the meat. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I just want to, and so you're not going to please everybody. You're not the dentist for everyone. I'm not the speaker or consultant for everyone. But if all of us can get centered on, if your lack of confidence is, how do I lead a team? Or how do I get this patient to see the value of treatment? How do I have these conversations differently? Whatever it is, if you center on, I want to come in and I want to serve this person as best as I can, without sacrificing yourself.
Yeah.
All I can be is my authentic self and give the best that I can. And if that doesn't hit right for people, I accept that now. That was a big leap for me to take. And that took a lot of work, but that was my own work to do.
I want to go back to something that you said, and I want to summarize what I think I heard. And that is, you gained more confidence by experiencing situations than by anything else.
Yes.
You pushed yourself to do the things that you were uncomfortable with.
Yes.
Even though you were afraid anyway, and that experience led to your confidence.
Yes.
Awesome.
100% yes. And I've said this before, I'm playing in social media a little bit. I started a speaker Instagram page, and I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, I'm just saying stuff on there, and if it resonates, great. If not, that's fine. But at one point I said in one of my posts that if you feel uncomfortable, what I've learned is when you get to a point of stretching beyond your comfort zone, when you start to feel that discomfort, chances are you're close to reaching to the next point. And if you can get yourself to push through the fear or the discomfort, that's where the real fruits of your labor can come, and unexpected reward, personally. And so now when I start to feel, oh gosh, can I do that? What could I possibly, that's my cue to do it.
Yeah.
Because that's where I feel the most fulfillment is in growing to another level. Hitting another rung of the ladder, not necessarily climbing the corporate ladder, but I mean in my own depth of experience.
Yeah, it's whatever is pushing you. And it can be different. It's different for all of us, right? I mean, but you want to get to the next level of whatever it is that you're doing. And
That's
so
right.
for you, it by just having that inner voice say, okay.
Yes.
Think you
And
can do
a lot of creative people struggle with this. There are countless books from business influencers, but also creative influencers that talk about this mindset. I call it head trash, but like Seth Godin, who's a very famous author in the business world, calls it the lizard brain.
I call it frick and frack, right?
Yeah.
Frick and frack are constantly going at it. They're fighting each other. No, she should do this. No, she should do that. In the negative and the positive, and the negative and the positive, they're going back and forth. So frick and frack, living my life all the time. When somebody just taught me this, okay? So let's say frack is the negative one, right? I have a bracelet that I wear now. When you have a negative thought, stop and think about the thought, then snap, and then switch it to your other hand. And what that does is it reminds your mind to stop with the negative thinking, snap out of it, and move on.
I love that.
Isn't that awesome?
Yes.
I just learned that from, her name is Krista Mayshore. And I just was listening to her. She's a social media person. And I was just listening to her. And she has a book called Stop, Snap, and Switch.
I love that.
If anybody out there wants to get it, I'll put the link underneath the YouTube channel and you can pick it up yourself. But it was a great concept to help me stop thinking the negative trash thoughts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's it kind of lives in the realm of there's a lot of books about this, but about changing or adding or improving disciplines to help you get to wherever it is or whoever it is you want to be. Atomic Habits.
Yep.
James Clear talks about having cues to help you stay on track of creating the new habits. And it's almost like that snap and switch is your cue, like your physical cue, until it becomes an unconscious habit.
Yep. Like
reminding yourself. I love that. I think that's brilliant.
Awesome. What's the single best piece of advice you've ever gotten?
It has to be a real pivotal point for me. A woman by the name of Gail Cantor. She, when I was in my early 20s, initially working for Jameson, I'd never pursued music or anything like that. And my mother hired her to come and do a whole leadership course for the entire Jameson team. And she talked a lot about, she used an analogy. So maybe this isn't exactly a piece of advice, but it was an analogy that really rattled me. And it stuck with me all these years, 20 plus years later. But that when we feel stuck, it's almost like if you can imagine having a nail stuck in your foot, like hammered into your foot all the way into the ground, and having that nail in your foot, and you move and you try to move and you try to move, but you're stuck there because that nail's in your foot.
Mm-hmm.
And so many people don't even realize they have one, but they're so stuck. And so the metaphor is, what's important is to determine what is the nail in your foot. And while pulling that nail out initially can be very painful, the pain will subside and you're free,
right,
to move forward.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
But so many people just are afraid of that pain, or they don't even realize the nail is there. And so they're stuck. And so I have continued to ask people, but it's all Gail, credit to Gail Cantor for teaching it to me, asking people the question, what's the nail in your foot?
Mm-hmm.
And when people, when you learn about how do you coach people, how do you help people change doesn't happen until you want to change.
Mm-hmm.
And until you're aware of a need and a desire to do so for yourself. And so that awareness is so important for progress. So I think, I don't know if that was the best advice I ever got, but it sure as heck has stuck with me for 24 years, and I'll never forget it. And I consider Gail one of the great mentors that have crossed over my journey, and I will forever be grateful to her for it.
That's awesome. Well, I loved it too. So now the audience knows it, and we're going to start figuring out what the nails are in our face.
That's right. Credit to Gail. Give Gail all the flowers for it, because it's hers.
All right. So have you ever had an aha moment when you realized, oh my gosh, I'm doing exactly what I was put on this earth to do?
Yes. And it's funny because when you start your journey resistant,
love the description.
When you start your journey resistant, you think you're doing it for everybody else but you. And because this is what I should be doing. And when you shift and have this realization of, I have to bring myself into this thing. If this is my journey, I have to bring myself to it. And when I started bringing my authentic self and the things that I felt I could bring to the table and contribute alongside the legacy things that we've taught all along, when people say specific things that I have encouraged them to do and it worked, or when they say they've made a difference, it feels, or when they say the things that are most important to me of what I want Jameson to represent in someone's life. Mm-hmm. And it's not about money. It's not even about the business. It's when they say, I have time for my family, or I'm so much happier now in my work, or I thought I was going to retire. Now I don't want to retire. Or, when they tap into that fulfillment, that I feel like, where else could I have this kind of experience?
And get this positive feedback on what you're doing and how you're contributing to somebody else's life.
Yes.
Amazing.
And in my work with Gail, I learned a lot about she calls it our internal DNA. I call it purpose. And I realized that one of my big words that are important to me is harmony.
Yeah.
Because for me, that's music, harmony in music, but harmony in life. Mm-hmm. And when I feel like by working with people, I can create that kind of harmony for someone, that just really hits the spot, right? Because and that's what I love about dentistry. So I hope if people are listening and they're wondering, what am I doing with myself? What am I doing here? You get to do whatever you want to do. You are in a career path. You're in a profession that has direct positive impact on people if you want to see it that way.
Absolutely.
You are life change. You are front lines of health, comfort, confidence, trust, relationships. You can give people in their employment, in their careers, an opportunity to lead and develop and thrive and grow in ways they may have never thought possible prior to working in your practice. And your patients, oh my gosh, the life change. So if that's important to anybody listening and you feel lost, hone in on that and create from there, because that to me can be a driver to get anybody up on the darkest of Monday mornings.
I agree with you. Well, yeah, I agree with you. It's not easy to do the work along the way that's necessary. But if you just take one step and do one thing every single day, you will get there. And it's just making that decision. I'm not giving up until I get to where I want to go.
Yes. And you know, that's where goal setting, not to get into that's where goal setting helps, because I think a lot of people just cycle in Groundhog Day because they wish they want, but they don't know how.
Yeah.
And so they just keep spiraling. And when you set goals, you may not know yet what it takes to do that next step. But once you set strategy, that starts momentum, no matter how slow it is. And progress is progress.
Yeah,
Even if it's slow, it's progress.
Exactly.
And that I feel like I have a friend who she owns a creative group outside of dentistry. She works primarily with hotels and does a lot of creative branding, just extraordinary work. And I got to see her present once, and she talked about, you know, when I feel overwhelmed, when the workload seems insurmountable, I just ask myself, what can I do? Like you said, MJ, what can I do in the next 24 hours to get me closer? And so sometimes we become so overwhelmed and paralyzed by the big goal or the big project or the big need that we forget all you need to do is the first step, and then the next step, and then the next step, and work on your confidence at least to the point that you feel comfortable enough to ask someone for help.
Yeah.
Even if it is to say, MJ, I have zero confidence and I don't know what I need to do to overcome that. Just having people in your corner, like I said earlier, that believe in you or want to help you and that you can be vulnerable with, can help you take that first step as well.
Absolutely. All right, next question.
Oh.
And this might be a tough one because I've heard stories that are tough to tell, but you know, women out there are willing to do it, which is amazing because it gives great insight. What obstacle, if any, have you overcome that you're really proud of?
Wow. Something about me that is pretty to a fault is I'm an eternal optimist. and I'm also a little, I have awareness, but I also am a little stubborn. And, you know, the transition of Jameson was really hard. We knew it would be hard to take it from two really strong, powerful, dynamic figureheads to a couple of yahoos that nobody knew. And I insisted on going by my married name, not incorporating Jameson, because I'm stubborn and I wanted to earn my stripes, and I didn't, you know, and I wanted that for myself, for my own career journey. But I also wasn't a speaker really at the time. Because my first lecture, I was 36. I'm 47 now. And we were just in the process of purchasing the company. So it was hard to keep the company going. Oh, man, that's another piece where my empathy for young doctors going into practice ownership, my desire to help them is so strong, because I know the unseen, unexpected challenges that come with the
Oh,
changing
yeah.
of the guard.
Yep.
So that was really hard. And we scrapped and we scrapped and we were scrappy and we were doing fine. And then we all hit the pandemic. And that was extraordinarily challenging for everybody. Not only were we trying to keep our own company afloat, but we had so many dental practices depending on us to
Yeah,
know
to help
what
them.
to do. And I know we're all sick of unprecedented times, but they truly were. So the exhaustion of that was, I think it took me a long time to recover from it. And I think I actually struggled with some pretty significant burnout last year, which was 3 years after. But as I know, because we all lived it, it just seemed like when one thing seemed resolved, another thing would come, another need, another question, plus the continuous need to rebuild our own company. And so once it felt like stabilization was starting to happen, then my body was like,
well, you had to keep it together, right?
yeah.
You had to keep it together. And I find there's a lot of people that will keep it together and get to retirement and then they die.
Yeah.
They keep it together and they get to their vacation. They're sick their entire time.
Yes.
It's you have to have that semblance of control over the environment that you're in. But then once that is stopped, you get overwhelmed and you get sick or something happens. And so I think the point of all of that should be that we have to take the time we need during those times. Sharing a little bit about my story during COVID, I actually think I went through a depression, which I've never been a depressed person in my entire life, ever. And there was so much going on, so much I had to make sure that I was aware of and control and reading constantly and making sure everybody was safe because, I had a lot of people that were under me, looking to me for leadership.
Yes.
And, making sure the school was going to be safe, the students were going to be safe, the faculty were going to be safe, all of those things. And I actually think after it was over, I went through a major depression because I just could keep it under control for only so long. And so I share that because I hope it helps somebody understand that, the world doesn't have to lay on your shoulders. You can stop and you can take time for yourself. And I've learned now how to do that better than I did before. And I think that was a good teaching lesson for me.
I think in our profession, I think especially in the women in our profession, we're not talking about the aftermath of the pandemic probably comfortably because we're all just so dang grateful we got out of it alive.
No kidding.
Literally alive, but our businesses made it, they made it, and we're just like onward, right? But I think there's some aftermath, and I think that it's a piece that I become a little bit dangerously protected of the well-being of the doctors that put their trust in me in conversations where I teeter on the side of, is this even good coaching? Because I am so adamant about balance that I'm like, reset, people, reset. I mean, get clear on what does success mean to you now? Do you want to burn both ends of the candle forever simply to hit the financial mark that you thought success equated to?
Exactly.
Or,
is it worth it? Is it worth your health? Is it worth your family?
Even the model of how they're practicing, I'm like, I got to ask you, if you did it this way and you saw half the amount of patients, but they made the same amount of money, wouldn't that be nicer? And so I simply have just become adamantly protective of the pursuit of balance. I don't know that there is such a thing, especially for women. We are just so guilt-ridden. The
mom guilt, the wife guilt, the parent guilt.
And I think the battle is all inside here for our own selves.
It is.
But it is like reset. And take a step back and think through, ideally, what's a day look like? And you know, you don't want to work on Fridays. Don't work on
Don't
Fridays.
work on Fridays.
Well,
Exactly.
I feel like I should work on Fridays. My patients really like Fridays. I don't care.
Nope.
I don't care. And I'm like, if the beautiful thing to me about owning your own business is you get to say what that business model looks like. Now, you may fail miserably, but the reality is, I think we, again, are shitting all over ourselves all the time of what we think we need to be doing instead of simply
Making the decision,
making a choice, creating our reality, rallying a team behind making that reality successful with us, and owning that unapologetically. And not feeling guilty about it because you want to get off on Fridays at noon. Well, then shut your practice down at noon and go be with your kids.
Exactly.
You know, and don't apologize for it.
Nope.
It is what it is.
You know what? We should live life with no regrets.
Yeah.
And you should be able to make decisions. It never stopped my practice from growing because I didn't work on Fridays. In fact, I actually did not work on Thursdays and Fridays because I had a 3-day practice when my daughter was younger. We left on Thursdays to travel sometimes to Europe because she was on a nationally ranked skating team. So for me, 3 days a week was enough because I could pack in those 3 days exactly what I needed to cover all the expenses and live the life I wanted. So, you know, I think we're afraid to make those decisions.
If you want to work Fridays, great. Well, let's also say that.
Yeah, exactly.
If you want to work 7 days a week because that's where you thrive, please do. You do you. And so until you tell me, I know who I am, I know what I want, and I need you to help me get to where I want to go. That is the ideal client for me.
That's excellent.
And if they need help with that first part, we start there because the unhappiness just grows when we're chasing somebody else's vision.
All right. Next question. Do you have a secret dream or a guilty pleasure that you'd like to share with the audience?
A secret dream. I think I have a secret dream this is crazy. I've never said this out loud to anybody.
Awesome.
I have a secret dream to write a book, to be that kind of author. I think that's something I daydream about. But I only write articles and blogs at this point. So I haven't exactly
you haven't jumped
done anything to jump into that. But that is something that I think about a lot is, I love to write. I just don't give myself a lot of time to do so.
Then I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you to set aside a time every week on your calendar for an hour, maybe an hour and a half to do what you dream about. Okay. All right. Personal motto or a mantra that you live by?
Well, I actually have this little piece right next to me that I look at, I keep by my desk all the time. And it says, be the same person in the dark that you are in the light.
I love that.
And authenticity is so important to me.
You've mentioned it a couple of times, so I know it's important. Yeah.
And so I don't want anybody to ever think they're getting anything other than me. Love it or hate it. And a woman that barely knew me gave me that plaque from a place outside of work. And it felt like it was some kind of meaningful transfer of a message that was really important to me. So be the same person in the dark as you are in the light, and let the journey take you wherever it needs to go because of that.
All right. One piece of advice that you would give a young woman going into dental school or dental hygiene school, doesn't matter, or men, because I know some men are listening also. What would that piece of advice be about dentistry?
Can I give two pieces?
Absolutely.
Number one, this is not gender specific. This is for any of the young dentists. I know you're overwhelmed in the studies in dental school in general, but it is never too soon to study business.
Oh,
So whether
couldn't
that's
agree more.
listening to business books that have nothing to do with dentistry, or watching webinars, or getting books, webinars, podcasts, anything you can get your hands on in moments that you have the opportunity, do that work alongside, because there is such a gap between the education you're getting to become a clinical dentist and what it's going to take you to be a great dental practice owner. And I want you to be as set up as you can be to be successful, and you have to do your own legwork to do that. So that's my first piece of advice is start sooner than you think studying business. However you can, for however much time you can give to that. I get it. For women, show up at the table, whether you were invited or not.
Right.
I have, 7 or 8 years ago, I was asked to attend a KOL meeting for a large company, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, oh, well, this is fun. Okay, I'm going to come. And it was a room full of male dentists, one female dentist, and me. And I looked at that room and I saw, wow, there's a lot of opportunity here. But I think we are too often shrinking to fit into other people's spaces and not allowing us, not stepping in with all of the potential and gifts that we have. So show up at the table. If you want to be a speaker, go take some speaking classes. You want to make connections with companies, you make the first move. You want to be a multi-location dental practice owner, you start doing the legwork to understand how to get that done. But more and more groups are supporting the women in dentistry piece, and I love that. But now it's time to move from simply supporting each other in our little bubbles to stepping out and bellying up to the bar, girls.
There you go. Perfect advice.
And be comfortable and confident and believe that you deserve to be there because you do.
That's right.
And that's all I have to say about that.
That's a big exclamation point at that end. All right. Now, this is going to be tough because I want you now to go back to your 12-year-old self and tell her, what piece of advice would you give her that you know today that you wish you had known then?
Exactly what I just told the female dentists.
Okay.
I would say just be yourself, be all yourself. Don't try to change your stripes. Lean into that, learn from that. I wish I had started developing my skills and taking time to learn more sooner. Mm-hmm. It's never too late. I just wish I'd done it sooner.
No, I agree. I agree.
And so I would have just said, just go all in. Whatever my curiosities were that I said, oh, no, that doesn't make any sense. Or what will they think? What will they think? What will people think? I wasted a lot of years in my youth worrying about what other people thought. And that's what I love about my 40s, because I just don't care anymore.
It's none of your business what anybody thinks of you, right?
I care about you. I care about building relationships that have depth and meaning. But if you don't want to have anything to do with me, I am so fine with that now. But I don't know if that's a female thing. MJ, what do you think?
It's a maturity thing, I think.
The maturity thing.
Yeah.
That's what and don't be afraid of your 40s, girls, or your 50s or your 60s. Don't be afraid. Every decade gets better.
I agree. Because you know what? We have more experiences and more confidence, and we walk into different scenarios that challenge us, and it makes you happy.
Yes. I would say find mentors that are older than you, and then also find sparks of inspiration that are younger than you.
Yeah.
Fill your world with that kind of variety of people. It'll keep you young, it'll keep you curious, and it will build you up to be a better version of yourself.
I agree. All right. How do you define success? What is your personal definition of success?
My purpose, my husband and I created a written purpose statement.
Okay.
So we have a vision, we have a mission, but we also have a purpose statement. When we worked with a different coach. His name is Chuck Blakeman. When we went through the transition
Oh,
of
I know
ownership of the
Chuck
company.
Blakeman. He's awesome.
Yeah. So we worked with Chuck when we transitioned the company. I really, we're coaches. We believe in being coached.
Yeah.
And Jess and I knew we need a little guidance to do this well. And he had us work on our purpose.
Yeah.
And what is that defining little kernel, the unchanging kernel, right? And we determined together that for Jameson, our purpose was to follow our compass to live healthy, happy lives and to help others do the same, whatever that means for them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so simple, I know, but it's really, what are you willing to do? What are you not willing to do? What are you willing to sacrifice for work? What are you not willing to sacrifice? We were in our 30s. We were new parents.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, that piece is it, that, I want to be healthy. I want to be happy, and I want to do it with integrity, following my compass. For me, spirituality is really important. And so to make sure that I don't drift from things, I want to be able, again, my mother always says, we want to look back on our careers and on our life with no regret. It's not oh gosh, I wish I had. Instead, we want to be able to look back and say, oh, I'm so grateful that I did.
I did, exactly.
And so that was a mantra that I heard her say over and over and over and over again during my formative years. Mm-hmm. And for me, that balance piece, I'm passionate about it because I know that in the end, when it's all said and done, people won't remember that I was the owner of the Jameson Group. People mm-hmm. won't probably even remember the lectures that I did. But the people that I develop relationships with, that's my legacy.
Absolutely.
And so I just want to make room for relationship for as long as I can.
Excellent. Now, do you feel successful? Last question.
Sure.
So, if you're setting it by your compass,
right?
You're happy and healthy.
Yes. And, here's where I'm going to say, hey, everybody, I'm a work in progress too.
Exactly.
Because the things I'm telling all of you to do, I have to work on that for myself and remind myself every day. Mm-hmm. Because success is so projected on us by society of what society says success is.
Yeah.
And when I click through what I call life pillars. So work is a life pillar, but my family, my spirituality, my friendships and relationships, it's my health. Those are all life pillars that I need to pour into, right? But if I were to run my checklist right now, I would feel very content because all the pieces that are most important to me are running well, right? The check oil light is not on. And so, yes, from my, if anybody else would look at my life on paper, they might be like, but for me, this is happiness in my bubble. And that's the ride, right, MJ? I mean, that's what I'm trying to tell other people to do. And, but I would be a liar if I didn't say that took me a minute to say yes to, because there's so much that could be done. There's so much more that success could look like to people. But for me to be healthy and to be happy and to feel like I'm honoring my compass, that's it. And those are three things I can say yes to right now.
I'm glad that you acknowledged the point that you paused. And the reason why I asked that question is so often we are so hard on ourselves and so critical of where we are at every moment in our life that we don't give ourselves enough gratitude and congratulations, like personal, like, you go, girl, you go, girl,
Yes.
because we think we have to do so much more. So if you feel successful in the moment, even though you have more things that you want to accomplish,
Yes.
that's a great life.
Yes. Yes. And, I worked with a doctor recently, and she said, I've already accomplished more than I thought I was going to in my life. If I think back when I was a child, she's like, so now it's a whole new perception of what is my vision, because
Where do I want to go? Yeah.
the opportunities are now new for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, how exciting is that for her?
Absolutely.
How exciting is that for all of us to know whatever your vision is today, pursue that with joy and passion. And then if you come to a crossroads and your vision changes for what you want to do moving forward after that, that's even more exciting.
Absolutely.
Because that's what it's all about. And that's what makes a career worth pursuing.
Absolutely. Carrie, I can't thank you enough for being on the show today. This has been a phenomenal conversation. I mean, so much great insight and content to share with the audience. Everybody's going to love it. So I really am very appreciative. Now, if people want to get in touch with you, where do they reach you? And, give me all the details. It
Absolutely.
will be underneath on our YouTube page, but just so you can verbally say it out loud is great.
Thanks, MJ. I think the easiest place to find us is on the Jameson website. It's jmsn.com. So Jameson with no vowels. So that's an easy one-stop spot. If you're on social media and you want to follow me personally, you can find me on Instagram or LinkedIn. That's where I am the most. Carrie Jameson Weber on LinkedIn, but Carrie Weber Speaks on Instagram. And come nudge me along and help me improve, help me be present with you. I'm trying to create a community, a lot of women in my community that, wanting to help doing exactly what your mission is here, MJ, to help build confidence and build more passion to pursue the things that we were all meant to be doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Carrie, for taking time out. I know your schedule is busy. I really appreciate it. And you have to get your mom on the podcast. I have so many questions for her.
Oh my gosh. That will not be a difficult arm twist. I can promise you that.
Excellent.
Love it.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to the Women in Dentistry podcast with Dr. MJ Hanlon. If you like our show and want to know more about us, check out our website, thewomenindentistry.com, or please leave us a review on iTunes. Join us for our next episode as we bring you another amazing woman leading the way for the next generation.